A toxic trail is threatening Kerala's coast. It began with a tilt and ended in a capsized vessel carrying hundreds of tons of oil and dangerous chemicals. The MSC Elsa 3, a container ship flying a Liberian flag, sank off the Kochi coast early Sunday morning after rapidly flooding in one of its holds. The vessel was reported to be 38 nautical miles from the shore when it began to tilt. On board were 640 containers and as follows: 13 carrying hazardous cargo, 12 filled with calcium carbide and fuel tanks holding over 450 tons of diesel and furnace oil. Fortunately, all 24 crew members were safely rescued, 21 by the Indian Coast Guard, 3 by the Navy. But what's now surfacing is an environmental crisis in the making. The Indian Coast Guard has now activated its full-scale pollution response mechanism. The threat? Well, a potential spill of highly toxic materials including calcium carbide, a chemical that reacts explosively with seawater, releasing acetylene gas, a highly flammable and dangerous compound. But the danger isn't just chemical. Simulations by INCOIS, India Ocean Monitoring Agency, warned that the leaked oil slick could reach coastal towns like Alappuzha, Ambalapura and Karunagapalli. Within 36 to 48 hours, fuel is already drifting towards the Kerala coast at 3 kilometers per hour. Officials say containers may begin washing ashore, posing an immediate hazard to both marine life and humans. The ICG said that the sunken ship was carrying 84.44 tons of diesel, 367.1 tons of furnace oil and containers with hazardous cargo like calcium carbide. When mixed with seawater, calcium carbide reacts apparently violently, releasing flammable gas and forming calcium hydroxide, which can kill marine life, disrupt ecosystems and harm even human beings. Kerala's Disaster Management Authority has issued a statewide alert urging stay at least 200 meters away from any washed up object. Report oil films or drifting cargo immediately. This unfolding environmental threat comes as Kerala's coast, rich in biodiversity, fishing and tourism, faces what could be its worst maritime spill in years. Let's find out from the guests, because we really do not want to create any panic, but let's go across to the experts to understand the gravity of the situation. Joining us on the show, Professor Sunil Kumar Singh, Director, CSIR, National Institute of Oceanography, and also Dr. Biju Kumar, Dean, Marine Monitoring Lab, Department of Aquatic Biology, University of Kerala. A very warm welcome to both of you. Let me first go to Dr. Biju Kumar. Dr. Biju Kumar, great to see you on the show, sir. You know, many questions were asked, and first of all, I don't think that, you know, media should create any kind of a panic. But Dr. Biju Kumar, tell me, how serious is this oil spill? First is, are all oil spills dangerous? Yes, no. And why is this particular oil spill off Kochi coast seem to be ecologically dangerous, doctor?
Yeah, all the oil spills are problematic for the marine life in general.
Right.
But here, you know, we have three kinds of pollutants in the ship, and one was actually the very low sulfur fuel oil, and second was the marine gas oil, and third is the calcium carbide. And here, you know, the impact on the marine life depends upon the quantity of the leakage from the containers. And as of now, you know, the containers which is washed off in this region, especially of Kollam, the containers are open, which essentially means that there was actually a leakage into the system. and which essentially cause it's a matter of serious concern, primarily when we look at the quantity of leakages in the system. And there are, if you look at the oil in general, the issue basically is that, normally these areas are not fully with the marine birds like penguins, etc., or mammals with the fur, etc. So that may not be a problem, but this is a fishing area. Basically, the Alleppey coast as well as the Kollam coast are the fishing areas in Kerala. It's very rich fishing grounds in Kerala. And the fishers normally will avoid this kind of polluted sites. But the problem again is,
Dr. Bijukumar,
yeah.
sorry to interject, but I would like you to please, explain, because considering one is understanding more and more as you speak. One is the ecological dangers of it. The other is economical dangers of it. For instance, please correct me if I am wrong, doctor. One is that you said it's a fishing area, Alleppey and everything. So, big economic loss. Also, it's a tourist hub. People are saying that it's a tourist hub. People go there, they spend money to stay there. So, would you be kind enough to explain first the ecological, which is not just, is it long term? If so, how does it do it? And also the economic, losses of this oil slick on your screens. Ladies and gentlemen of the Kochi coast, Dr. Bijukumar, Dean Marine Monitoring Lab. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, see, this has multiple impacts, and one, of course, is the ecological impacts in the marine ecosystem, because it's a fishing area. Even though fishers will avoid this area in general, but it will impact, though the oil layer will be on the surface, and when agitated, they are in long term converted into the paraffin balls, and which will settle at the bottom and are carried to longer distances, and that means the impact may be far-reaching in that sense, the ecological issues. And then there are organisms which actually float on the surface, like the planktons and the benthic communities. They may slowly absorb this in a long period of time, and then fishes will in turn consume that. And there are filter feeding organisms like the mollusks at the bottom. And all these things are a matter of concern and demand some kind of long-term monitoring. And the issues are actually long-term. Any kind of oil pollution, the ecological issues are long-term. In a state like Kerala, especially when the beach tourism is at its peak and the monsoon is at its peak, then the drifting of these containers to longer distances, drifting of the pollutants, especially towards the south, along with the stronger currents here, is actually a matter of concern, especially which essentially requires some kind of long-term monitoring, particularly when we consider the long-term impact of oil pollution in the system.
Kumar, I also want to understand that, because of the monsoons, you were talking about the hazards on fishery, as it were, but it's also marine productivity. Do you think that this slick will impact that as well?
Yeah, primarily because, this is an upwelling zone and the productivity is very high, primarily because of the higher the nutrient load as well as the plankton growth here. And normally any kind of the oil layer on the surface will impact the productivity in the long term. And also not only in the surface, but also in the benthic ecosystem, because ultimately after a period of time, the oil will settle down, and that will impact the benthic communities as well, which essentially means that the productivity in the ecosystem will be impacted.
I also want to talk to you about, because most newspapers are focused majorly on calcium carbide and called it dangerous when it comes in contact with seawater. Now, this has happened. Let's put those visuals full screen so that, ladies and gentlemen, you understand this is off Kochi coast. This is what has happened, the oil spill, and it is now raising questions about ecological dangers, ecological disaster, and also immediate dangers, which Dr. Bijukumar has been talking about. Let's now focus on what is calcium carbide, because apparently there are warnings that do not go close to 200 meters of if you find any remnants of this vessel. Doctor, first of all, why is the distance being, people being asked to keep a distance? And do you think the fishermen will understand it? Do we have strong communication systems? And number two, the calcium carbide menace, as it were, when it mixes with sea water. Dr. Bijukumar, on the screen. Thank you.
Yeah. The calcium carbide, of course, is a very serious pollutant, especially on the land. In the water, when it mixes with water, it releases the acetylene gas, which is flammable. that means anybody going close to that, and there's always a chance for greater burn in that sense. And also this is a very serious pollutant, especially in the marine ecosystem. And that is why, the distance is very important. It's highly flammable, and if the quantity is very high, and the chance of getting the flames, especially in the boat, is very high. And that is the reason why, the Disaster Management Authority gives a warning to stay away from the containers in general, because when the containers is there, nobody actually knows what is actually inside. So that's actually an issue. So all the containers should be seen with caution in that sense.
Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General TERI, is also joining us on the Zoom. Thank you so much, Dr. Dhawan, for making the time and joining us. Dr. Dhawan, we are discussing about both the ecological as well as economical damages which has been incurred or may be incurred due to this oil spill of Kochi. Would you like to, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, talking about the long-term impact of this and how should Kerala come to terms with it? Because let's also understand that unlike Delhi, which is landlocked, Kerala's, economy to a great extent, is dependent on marine life.
Very true. And it's going to have impact which is immediate, which all of us will notice, and that will be in the form of fish and other animals, plants. They will be dead in no time. Because see, like when even for mosquitoes, we know that just put a oil in water and mosquitoes won't be able to breed. So it is something similar, because the plants and animals which are underneath, there will be no air for them, and therefore the immediate impact is that they are going to die. But when we talk of long term, because anything in water, it's going to disperse. And then the concentration at some places is not going to be lethal. It's not going to kill the microorganisms and organisms as such, but they will be built inside their stomach. So if you eat that fish, ultimately you are also adding or you are eating that oil which is not good for you. And many of the compounds are carcinogen. So ultimately it is avoided that the fishermen perhaps will not fish for few days or few months because they know that fish is not healthy.
Months is a long deal. That's a very long time. I mean, Dr. Viju Kumar, a couple of months for those poor fishermen. I mean,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That will be an economic loss, because we cannot take the risk of health of the human beings here. So this also the all kind of oil pollution, the impact is actually long term as well. So we need to have a stronger kind of monitoring, regular monitoring, to see the amount of pollutants actually which is accumulated in the system of these organisms.
Right.
Exactly. And the other thing is that let's not give only the gloomy picture. It is that there are methods available, what we call as bioremediation. So you can absorb this oil at the surface itself so that you avoid the damage. So the process is called bioremediation. So of course, TERI has developed, which is for land systems, but there are systems available for marine environment as well. So we should try to clean it out as much as possible, because ecological damage is far more than the economic damage and maybe the expenses that we must incur at this stage.